Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey and robbing the fatherless. What will you do on the day of reckoning, when disasters comes from afar? To whom will you run for help? Where will you leave your riches? Isaiah 10, 1 through 3. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow. Isaiah 1 and 17. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9. Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case and will exalt life for life. Proverbs 22, 22 through 23. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Proverbs 11 and 25. It is a sin to despise one neighbor, but blessed is the one who is kind to the needy. Proverbs 14 and 21.
Being moved from here because the taxes going so high in this neighborhood. I run from over the round, over the House of Network over there, and they talking about they don't know what they're gonna do with taxes raising up in this neighborhood. Every time they build something in the neighborhood, the taxes go up. You know, I'm worried about what I'm gonna do. I live here. Right here? Yeah. I'm worried about where I'm gonna stay. We had blacks had a bunch of businesses down here until 3C and DC came into existence. Just like they moved the Indians to North Dakota, they died on the way and all that shit. That's what happened in this neighborhood. The rent started to go up in the neighborhood. People had to move to Westchester, Batavia, away from their neighborhood. No, that's right. Some blacks can get jobs, but they on the drug thing. They can't pass the drug test. They can't pass the drug test. Most young people around there, they be walking down the street. I see it all the time. I've been living in Over the Rhine for almost 15 years, going on 20. They don't go to school. They walk by here, throwing that marijuana on and stuff. They don't go to school, man. I don't think it's their education. They just, some of them don't care.
So the Bible spends a lot of time talking about poverty. And as of recently, I have seen and read a lot about slavery around the world. Millions of girls being abducted into sex trafficking, India, poverty in Africa, societies being crippled in Iraq, Syria, with no help to really rebuild. And I started thinking and reading the scriptures a lot on poverty and how it spends many verses over and over talking about if you have it or if you're wealthy, be generous to the poor, and how reward will come from that when you give from a cheerful and giving heart. In our city, Cincinnati, in different cities around the United States, we have to have this conversation. We have to join forces to help the impoverished. One thing Gandhi said that was real inspiring but very true was poverty is the worst form of violence, because if you can't give a person what they need to survive, most will resort to violence. And that's what we're seeing around the world. We're seeing a lot of people resorting to violence because the church won't step up and give their resources. We won't put our resources together to really change the world. And we can do that if we come along one another and really make this a priority. And I think our world will become a better place. So even though poverty is horrible, and again, I'll say it again, poverty is one of the worst forms of violence, because if you can't give a person what they need to survive, most will resort to either petty crimes or violent crimes. And for most people, it's a form of survival. And what we need to do to make our brothers' problems our problems. But something even more detrimental than poverty, something more detrimental than racism, something more detrimental than prejudice is silence. When we're silent, when we see that our brothers and sisters are suffering, when you know that in the world millions of girls are getting taken and raped, sometimes 10 to 15 times a day, getting diseases, getting AIDS, when you see certain things like that taking place in the world and we just become silent, that's the real issue. When we see our cities are suffering in the urban core, when we see children after children in poverty getting abused by parents, getting abused by cousins, getting abused by friends, when we see these things and we remain silent, and we can't even have a conversation about it and not necessarily speak from our own echo chambers, well, we think our preconceived notion, our prejudice is already right, and not willing to listen to the other person, we create issues. So today, think about what I'm saying. And when you see something going on and you know it's wrong, stop being silent.